Hey guys, this is Ken from Mancave Effects. In this tutorial I will show you how to edit lines and node points in CorelDraw 12 or CorelLaser. So for this I will show you how to actually cut out the Falcon Heavy that just went up a couple of days ago. But first let's just get started with some little basics here. So I will draw a standard square. With the square, as I showed in my last tutorial, you can change colors and make only the outline visible like this. But let's say we want to make a little notch here, for example. So I go here and choose my shape tool. When I go and click on my square here with the right mouse button, there is a little pop-up menu and it says here convert to curves, and that's what we want to do. So what basically happened now is that our square isn't a square anymore, it is a shape that consists out of 4 lines. Which means when I click on this corner node here and I drag this down, you can see I can edit the shape of it in any direction and any form I want. I will go and undo this right now. So when I go more or less to the midpoint and I click with the right mouse button, I can add a node. And sure, I can drag this down like this right now. And you see we have our notch here. Let's say we want to make this, but in a more rounded, dented version. I can go ahead and select this and simply press delete on my keyboard and it will disappear again. When I go on one of the corner points here and I select to curve, there are those 2 points showing up. Those are not nodes, those are editing tools. That I can just simply drag down, for example, and you see that they will form a nice curve like this. So this is like the most basic and most important thing when you want to outline something or when you want to draw your own working piece. Another nice and pretty important thing is when you click, for example, here and you click with your right mouse button again, you have this option breaking apart, which breaks apart the line on the point that you have chosen. So when I drag this up, you see that our line is broken up into 2 segments at the point where I selected it. When I now select one of those little squares and I press delete, those lines will disappear. So, and sure, I can edit those as well, and I can move them around where I need them and what I want to do. Okay, so this is just the basic of how to edit a shape or how to edit a line. What I want to do today is I want to cut out the Falcon X that just went up, and we have this here, and I got this here as a imported picture. This in this case is a PNG, which you can see as the background is already cutted out. When this picture was being cutted out before and saved as a PNG, it will remain cutted out even when you import it to CorelDraw. I want to cut this out onto some acrylic plastic. So I just need the outlines for now. I don't need all the writings and everything. Sure, we can add those later to engrave them onto our piece to make them look great. But for now I just want to cut out the outlines and make them properly cut on my K40 laser. So there are plenty of ways of doing this. I will show you 2 ways for now. I'm not saying that those are the right ways or the professional ways. I'm just saying that those are the ways how I do it, and they work for me most of the time. Okay, there is a software that comes with CorelDraw which is called CorelTrace. This is an autotrace program that will help you cutting out or vectorize a picture automatically. Vectorizing is something or a word you have to get used to in CorelDraw, as CorelDraw is based on vectors, so it's not really a photo program or a photo editing program like Photoshop. For example, when I go on my color palette here and I click one or the other color, nothing happens. That's because it's a picture, it's not vectorized. When I draw a square here and I want to color this purple or blue, you see this is not a problem because this is a vector. Let's get rid of this. So we have to vectorize this rocket here. As I only need the outlines, I have to first get rid of all the details in here. So what I do is simply I click on it, I click with the right mouse button and I go to edit bitmap. That will open a little bitmap editor That also comes with CorelDraw 11 or 12. Alright, here we have our rocket. Now it's very simple. I go to image, I go to adjust, and I go to brightness, contrast, intensity, and I put the intensity on a -100, which leaves us with only a black silhouette of our rocket. That's what we want. Now I go here, and there's a little trick. When you go to export, make sure it is a JPEG file, not a PNG, because the PNG may cause the further steps to fail, because there is a little bug, I think, in CorelDraw, and it doesn't work out with PNG files. Use JPEG, and yeah, I already did this here, so I will just rename this or overwrite this. Okay, right, so we can close this down. We don't want to save this for now. So I will delete this as well, and I will re-import our silhouette, right? Yeah, there it is. So still, when I change color, nothing happens because it's still not vectorized. We just edited the picture actually. We click with the right mouse button again, and now we go to Trace Bitmap. This will open CorelTrace. And you see we have two windows here. This is the trace result, and this is our original picture. You see here is the entire rocket, and you see there is a lot of little detail going on, and that will cause our software to have some issues, I guess. So here we have a little tool selector where we can select different ways of tracing our picture. I usually go with simple outline. I don't surpass 60% in accuracy, because that causes the trace result to get very, very high detailed, and it adds so many notches that your laser printer may get sick later on. So I will try 60 for now, and then we do the trace. That takes a couple of seconds, as you can see here, and then we have our trace result. As you can see, it is not 100% accurate. There are always little failures, because this is now based on notch points and lines and curves. This is not a picture anymore. So this is why I will show you how to manually trace this later on by just drawing over it. That's why I showed you how to edit lines and stuff. Okay, let's first go with this here. I will save this now. I will save the trace result. I will overwrite this, as this was a test before. Then I will close this down. This we can delete, and we go on File. This time we can open it, as it is vectorized now. And you see it appears already as a vectorized file here. Alright, there we have it. When I select this and I go to our color palette, I can here now change the color. When I click with the right mouse button here, you see there are our outlines. We first have to ungroup this, because CorelDraw groups this together to a single piece, so it makes it easier to drag it around on your screen. But as we want to edit this now, I need to ungroup it. So now you see all those little notch points appearing. So first, sure, we want to get rid of this border here, so we select it and we press delete. So here you can see there are still some lines left. We will delete those. Yep. And here you can see this can be a little problem for our laser cutter, as it will pass us multiple times on this line, as it is thicker than a hairline. But also in this case there are several layers right now. Let me show you. So when I just select the whole thing and I move this over, you see that we have multiple lines here, so to speak. So this is an outline, and those are little details we may want in our cut or not. Those we actually don't want, because those are laying, as you can see, they are laying over this. So what means when I would cut this right now, everywhere where the line is a little bit thicker, the laser would make two passes, and we don't want that. On the other side, when I take this over, you see that those lines are not in our graphic anymore, and we sure want this to be cutted out as well, right? So we will go back, and I will select by holding down Shift. I will select those lines with them. And then we try to drag it over again, and you see there are multiple lines as well. So this is like basically the classic problem with autotrace. You have so many lines that are doubled and whatever that it risks that your laser cutter will burn your working piece later on. That's why I want to trace this manually, but I wanted to show you when you have a simpler picture or a simple object, you can auto trace, and then you can simply just cut it right away. But in this case the graphic is too complex to easily just make it cut automatically. So what I do, I will trace this manually around, and I will show this to you right now. Okay, so let's start with re-importing our picture we started with. There we go. And we want to trace this manually, just the outlines, right? What I will do, I will only trace one side, as we can mirror this over to the other side and flip it later on, and this will gives us a perfect symmetrical rocket. Let's start with drawing a line here. So I go to the midpoint and I just draw a line, let's say until here. Alright, and you see it always offers you the option to enhance your line or to make it to make several points by pressing escape. We only left over with one single line here. Okay, we go to our shape tool now, and you see we can change this to a curve here. There again, there are our two editing points showing up, and now we can adjust them more or less where we need them to be. See, you can also edit the height, so it will change the angle. But in any way, this is not working with only 2 points. We need more points. So I will set a next point here by clicking right and click add, and then we drag this over to a point where we can more or less achieve a perfect fit here. Alright, let's go further down here. What I will do is I will just add another notch, and I will select this one, and then I will drag this down. There we go. Okay, so here I need another point, and I will put another point here. Then we want also to have this little thing here to be in our outline, so I add another point, and I add another point here. So I will convert this here to a line to make this straightening out. Okay, so in between the boosters I will simply start off with a rectangle like this, and then I will shape it to the shape I need it to. I want to cut out those little 2 holes as well. This gives a nice little detail to our cut later on. So again, I go with a square and then convert it to curves and edit it in the way I need it to be edited. You see, this is the same thing. So I will simply copy and paste this over to here, like this. You see it's not 100% symmetrical. I will now select our rocket, I will move it out of the way, and you see that we are left here with our drawing. So what I'm going to do now, I will just copy this, I will paste this, and we have this nice two little mirror buttons, and there's one for vertical and one for horizontal mirroring. I sure will use the horizontal one, and then we put this over here. Then I will zoom in here and we will connect those two parts together. Okay, so now as we have finished our outlines, we can finally go ahead and remove our rocket all the way and just delete it by pressing delete. And we are left over with our exact nice symmetrical copy here. Oh wait, there is still something missing. Let's just go back and see. Okay, this is the same way they're supposed to be, so let's go ahead and delete this again. And I will just copy over those two segments. If you want to choose multiple things, items, you just click on them while holding down Shift, so as you do in every other software as well. Okay, that should be our outline, right? So let's go ahead and scale it down to the size of our laser bed, which is 320 wide on 220 in height. Let's first save this for a moment. Save this as should we save it as CDR? Save. Okay. Now we go ahead and select all of this, and we will combine this. You know what? We will add a little engraving onto this as well. I think I will go to Photoshop and then cut out only the things I need. So as I want to engrave as well some of the logos, I went to Photoshop and I am selecting all of the graphical components. That might be too small, I have to rewrite that maybe. Can choose this one as well, like this. We see here those lines, we don't need those lines, we get rid of them. Or should we keep those lines maybe? No, we should get rid of them. We could now save this as PNG file, because we want it to be transparent, right? Falcon markings, and there we go. Okay, now we have to scale this down. No, we don't have to scale it, it's already scaled as we used the original sized picture. We just have to align it correctly here. So we can build a little base as well, and we cut it in the same time while we are cutting our rocket, so we can stand it up later on. So what I'm going to do is simply as before, I have to first ungroup this as I grouped it. Just for dimensional purposes, I will just draw a little square here. So I know exactly the size how big my cutout is supposed to be later on in my little bracket where I can stick in this whole rocket. Like this, okay. So now we know that this notch here is about 378 millimeters wide and 3 millimeters deep. Now we need a little base plate here. Doing this very simple by just drawing this here, and then let's say it's 85 on 30. We want some rounded edges for this, like that. And then we need our cutout to be somewhere near the center. Wait, I will put this over here. And then I will put back on my grid, so I can align this, and also I will put on the snap to grid function 3 millimeters thick. Let me just check quickly if this is the right size of my material I'm using. Yep, it's 3 millimeters. Okay, so I think I might be ready to give this a try. I will first engrave this, and later on I will cut this out. So what I will do, I will now switch on my laser. Okay. Now I will go onto my engraving settings. 200 mils per second, that's fine. Yeah, so I think I'm ready to switch on the power supply for the laser. And yeah, let's engrave this first. Alright, let's go. Apparently, while this is engraving, I already saw that there is a little issue, and that's the X and everything like this one. This is not dark enough. As I said in my last video, the laser always only sees black and white, or black and transparent. When it gets too light in color, it risks that the laser don't seize this. So what I will do, I have to colorize this somehow. I make this darker. So I simply go to edit bitmap, and I will make this to be black. So as I only want this and this part of the X to be engraved again, I will remove everything else and just go for a second run to avoid the laser from engraving the whole thing again, which takes like 20 minutes. So first of all, I will make this transparent, so the aspect will still be right when I make a second pass. Then I will move this, and I will remove this using the eraser tool. Or maybe no, I will keep this, so this will get a deeper engraving. I have to... wait. This I have to remove as well, and I will remove all of this here, which leaves me only with those two items. Okay, so I made a repass on those two items here, and it engraved the X just fine right now because it's all black. So I will now delete all of the writings and all of the logos and everything. So the only thing that remains are the lines that I want to be cut out. While engraving, I saw that those lines, they are tiny, so I maybe reinforced them a little. Alright, with this done, we should be ready to cut this thing. Let's go over here to our cutting manager. Don't touch anything because everything is aligned, because we just engraved everything, right? So let's put this down to like 20 millimeters per second, and then we're good to go. Okay, so after the second pass, I will do another one with like 30 millimeters per second. When you watch closely, I don't know if you see it on the video right now, but when the laser gets through, the light of the laser will reflect off the metal grid, which is holding everything in place. So that's a nice indicator that your beam went through and that your cut is a success. Let us see if we need another run. So it took 5 runs in total to get through the material, also to be sure the cut went through all around the piece, because it's pretty fragile and I don't want to break anything while taking it out of the sheet. Okay guys, this came out pretty nice and will find its place right next to my Saturn V model rocket. I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe to my channel Mancave Effects, and I will see you pretty soon with a new tutorial or with another build. See ya!